Today is Thursday, August 7th, 2014, and this is the beginning of an interview with Mr. Ibrahim Abdulrahim at Camp Perry. Mr. Abdulrahim is 56 years old, having been born on October 28th, 1957. My name is Julie Miley, Manuscripts Assistant at the Hayes Presidential Center in Fremont, and I will be conducting this interview. Can you state for the record what branch of military you are currently serving and the years that you have served?
I am currently in what we call the Air Reserve Component, which is the Ohio Air National Guard of the United States Air Force.
Okay.
You want my rank and all that?
Yep.
I'm a Master Sergeant E7 type, Logistics Plans NCOIC, or a non-commissioned officer in charge of the logistics planning portion of the squadron.
Okay.
The 200th Redwood Squadron, that is.
Okay. Why did you decide to enlist, and what year did you enlist?
Well, that was back in 1982, and in 1982 I was a construction project engineer, and I decided that I wanted to more or less find out what I was made of. You know, I think I was like 23 or 24 at the time, and I really just wanted to see if I could hack it, you know. And so I figured joining the Guard would be a good way to find out what I was made of. And so actually I took the ASVAB test, and I contacted an Army Guard recruiter, is who I initially was working with, and because a friend of mine was in the Army Guard. And so then someone mentioned to me right after I went through all that, I did the ASVAB, I went to MEPS for the physical and all of that, and just before I was getting ready to sign on the dotted line, someone mentioned to me about Camp Perry having an Air National Guard.
Really?
Civil engineering unit was up there at Camp Perry. I said, Air National Guard. Of course, at that time, I didn't know there was even a difference between the guard, whatever, you know. So I came up here. I took a drive up here. So at that time, all the equipment was OD green, that old green, ugly stuff. And it was just trucks, backhoes, excavators all along the fence. And I said, this is the place. And I drove up inside. There was the recruiter, his name was Harold Shiner. He was a master sergeant, and he gave me a tour of the base. And I said, sign me up. And that's it. You know, that's how I got here. But
so you had to go through. So then you went through basic training.
I came out here. Of course, they let you come in, you know, until your school date.
Okay.
And so that was in July of '82. I left for basic in January of 1983.
Now, where did you go to that?
Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. And back then it was like just about 6 weeks. I think it's a little longer now, but back then it was about 6 weeks. And then you have you go to your technical school or your Air Force specialty school is what that is.
Okay.
And whatever specialty. And I was already a civilian equipment operator, fully qualified. So, you know, I came in as an A1C, get 2 stripes, and I got to bypass the technical school and just come back here and do on-the-job training back at Camp Perry. Since I was, like I said, I was already an equipment operator. So that's what I did. I spent 6 weeks there and another 6 weeks here, and then I was full-fledged Ohio Air National Guardsman.
Jeez.
That's how that all panned out.
Was that when you were at your basic training? Was that sort of like a culture shock for you, or like a kind of a big change of pace?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I can't, you know, I won't say I had a sheltered background, but you know, I came up in a pretty strict religious community.
Okay.
And so, of course, coming to the Guard and hearing a lot of profanity and a lot of some of the things, the different things that were going on at that time was a little bit of a shock. But you know, it wasn't something I never heard before. So, but it was just took a little getting used to.
Okay.
And so, but I had a basic training. I thought it was a piece of cake, really.
Really?
I thought it was very easy. But I was a little older. Like I said, I was 24, so I was a little older than a lot of the troops, and we were mixed with the Guard, Reserve, and active duty.
Oh.
All of us do basic training together. No matter what branch, whether you're in the active or whether you're in the reserve component, we all still do basic training the same, and the technical school or the Air Force specialty school that's required for your career field.
Okay.
And so, like I said, it was a lot of 18-year-old kids there too, and so I was more like a father figure to some of them, a big brother figure.
Oh yeah.
Even though we did have quite a few guardsmen, there were a couple of guys that were actually older than I was, and at that time. But like I said, we all meshed right together, and we got through basic training.
Huh.
I was a squad leader. At that time, I think they call them element leaders now, but we had 4 squads. We were broken into 4 squads. I was the first squad leader. Then we had a dorm chief. He was like the head honcho of all of us. He was put in charge and the one who had to bite the bullet in case anything really happened. So, but it was a great experience, really. I thought it turned out really good for me. So even though we had a couple folks that had a hard time, first time away from home and first time away from mom and pop, and they just had a really hard time, adjusting. But I think we all got through it, though. Everybody that was in the squadron that I was in at the time, we all got through it.
Huh. Because I know a lot of times people, if they don't get through, they'll recycle them.
They'll recycle them, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we had anyone get recycled in our group. I think we had one guy had a family emergency, went home, came back, and finished right on time with us. I think he was gone for about a week too. But other than that, I think if I can recall, everybody in that group, in that squadron, we all graduated together.
Okay. So after you were done, you said you came back here? Came back here
to Camp Perry. Spent 6 more weeks here. Back then, we had of course, the place wasn't as built up as it was. This building wasn't even here.
Oh, really?
In fact, all the buildings that are here now are new buildings except the shops. And this was like a double wide, triple wide trailer, modular trailer, like a trailer, not a trailer park would have. This building, the headquarters building, which the dining hall was attached to it, and then they were just in the process of building that building wasn't built either. I think they were in the process of getting ready to build this building, and then thinking about building the building next door. So this was all just like trailers back in the early 80s.
Early 80s. So when you came back here for your technical school, what was your specialty? I was an equipment operator.
Okay. Like I said, I was just running equipment.
I'd say, what is that? Yeah, what's that entail?
They were, of course, since I was already qualified on everything they had here, basically. So some of the small projects that went on, they just doing basic digging, helping out with some of the community projects that were going on. At that time, we did a lot more community projects, locally here, like for Port Clinton, Oak Harbor. I can remember working at some of the schools, doing some maybe some pavement, concrete work like that, excavation, stuff like that. We put in on Camp Perry, we put about maybe 500 or 600 feet of underground drainage in, and we did some of that at one of the beach fronts in Port Clinton.
Okay.
And those little things like that we were doing, and plus along with helping training some of the other troops that weren't fully qualified already.
Okay. When you enlisted, what was your enlistment for the year? Like, how long was your?
The initial enlistment was for 6 years. 6 years. And the Guard is normally 6 years. Re-enlistment is 3 years or 6 years.
Okay.
Or you can do extensions, 1 year extensions if you're not certain of what you're going to do and what your plans are. Then you can you can ask for I think you can get up to 3 extensions, 1-year extensions.
Okay. So when you were, your initial enlistment, you didn't have to you didn't live here. You were able to commute.
Right. Yes. That's the unique thing about the Guard, is that we're all stationed in our hometowns.
Okay.
And we just come to the base, and instead of being shipped off to another base someplace, anywhere in the country or in the world, for the needs of the Air Force. Active duty, they get shipped out to wherever they're needed, and they don't have the option of staying close to home or at home.
Yeah. That's a good aspect. I never thought about that. Okay.
And that was, for me, that was important at the time, because I was working. I still, I had a civilian job.
Oh, so you worked.
So I was
really?
here. A guardsman is just weekend warriors, what they call us. So typically, we're only here. We do 1 drill per month, which we call a UTA, Unit Training Assembly. We get together once a month, and then we do a summer camp, a 2-week summer camp every year, and that was what we did for the most part back in those days. So I guess back in the early '80s, it was a part-time job, and most of the people in our unit here, we have a small full-time staff, which I'm a part of now, and then we have a very large air guardsman, traditional air guardsman population, which is approximately 400 people between here and our detachment in Mansfield.
Wow.
And so we kind of keep things afloat and set up everything for the unit training assemblies, as well as respond to any emergencies. Because the Guard is on call for the governor, and in the case of a state emergency, like we just had with the Toledo water. The water situation in the Toledo area.
So what did you guys do for that?
We provided reverse osmosis water purification systems to pump water and provide purified water at 3 different sites in Toledo over the past weekend to try and help alleviate the shortage of water that occurred as people not being able to use water. For a certain number of days that they were trying to evaluate how toxic the water was.
Okay. Yeah, that was a big.
So we deployed quite a few people, quite a bit of equipment and support personnel to maintain those 3 sites.
Okay.
And that's what I do.
That's what you do.
Coordinate the logistics portion of getting all that stuff working and out to the places they need to be.
Okay. And you just service the state?
We service the state of Ohio, and we also have been called to help out with Katrina.
Oh, really?
So any governor can call and ask for assistance from another state, a nearby state. And our unit, being a civil engineering unit, we're unique. We do construction basically. Okay. Not only do we do the water, the water purification, but we also do construction. We can build facilities, from the ground up. We have civil engineers, architectural engineers, electrical, mechanical engineers that are actually part of the unit. And we've actually went all over the world, done that since I've been in the unit. That's what we do.
Okay.
And so Red Horse, which is it's Rapid Engineering Deployable Heavy Operations Repair Squadron Engineers.
Wow.
That's what Red Horse stands for.
I never knew that. That's good to know.
We've been around since Vietnam days.
Really?
And they decided to, stand this unit up back in the 70s. So this unit's been around a long time. This is the most active Red Horse unit in the world, though. It's a 200 for the Guard. We actually deploy more than active duty does.
Really?
Yes, than our active duty counterparts. So this is probably it is, in my opinion as well. This is the premier Red Horse unit in the world. The 200 right here at Camp Perry.
That's awesome.
We have done more. We've been more places and done more than any other Red Horse squadron in the world. We have a very, very extensive track record, and just about everybody in the Air Force knows who we are. Everybody who is somebody knows
there you
who
go.
we are. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, we're the only ones who get to wear our own special hat.
Really?
Just like the CBs or the Navy SEALs or the Green Berets. They have their own security forces.
That's cool.
Everybody else wears the hats that match the regular clothes. We're one of the few in the Air Force who get to have our own hat, our own red hat.
Huh. Never knew the story behind that, so that's cool.
So it's a very prestigious, well-known organization, Red Horse.
Okay. Now, have you always been in logistics?
No, actually, I was an equipment operator at first. I've been in this job for 20 years.
Okay.
I've been doing this for 20 years. But actually, I'm what you call I have 3 Air Force specialties.
Okay.
Equipment operator is one. Vehicle maintenance, which is a production controller, actually what they call an MCNA, maintenance, control, and analysis for all of our equipment and vehicles. I did that job for about 2 years, and then I've been here the last 20 years. So equipment operator for 10 years, then I did 2 years as a VMNA, and then 20 years here, so that's a total of 32 years.
So when you first initially enlisted, did you see this?
No.
Happening?
If someone would have told me in 1982, actually in 1982, I was a little excited when I first joined, even after basic. But when I came back, I guess reality set in, and being a minority, and back in that time, it wasn't as diverse as it is now.
Okay.
So it was a real struggle trying to fit in, and of course, being from Islamic background. All of those things were just, kind of
stacked
just like a no, and like not no, but hell no, I'm not staying here. There's just no way that I'm going to stick this out. Those first, not the first year, but the second, third, and fourth year were probably the hardest years that I was here, and there was just no way I was going to stay. And part of it is because as an equipment operator and a project engineer in the real world, I was doing construction every day in the real world to make money. Coming from there to here is a real culture shock because the government is not in business to make money.
True.
So it's a training environment, and of course, in my opinion, I didn't think that some of the engineers were as competent as they should have been.
Okay.
And seeing how construction is actually done on a daily basis, I thought that their procedures were just whack. These guys do not know what they're doing.
Yeah, coming from a.
Because if you did this out there, you'd go broke and you'd be out of business.
Yeah.
If some of the things that they did rather, and being an A1C, just a 2-striper at the time, they don't care what you got to say. Go someplace, sit down, be quiet, And so, I still, met all the minimum requirements to get rank, And finally, I made the rank of E5, which is a staff sergeant at the time. And back then we had buck sergeants, and E4, you transition to the sergeant ranks. Now that's gone, but back then you could be a buck sergeant, and so it took 5 years to get to staff sergeant for me. That 5th year, I got to be a crew leader in the equipment shop. I got to put my little 2 cents in about how things are going to be done with my crew, and they knew I had a construction background, so they turned me loose on a few projects, and I had an attitude adjustment, and my whole perspective about it changed, and I guess having the opportunity to do it my way, which is something I think is unique for the Air National Guard, because the Army National Guard, that probably would have never happened. But in the Air National Guard, being that a lot of us, our specialty in our career fields, a lot of us, our civilian job and our Air Force job are the same. And so as a result, we're the resident experts, so to speak. Most of us are really, really knowledgeable about what we're doing and how we go about doing it. And so I had an attitude adjustment. I changed my entire perspective about the Guard. so when my 6 years came up, I re-enlisted, and that was that was the turning point, for my career here in the Air National Guard. Was just that realization, re-enlisting, and when I re-enlisted, of course it was the leadership here, recognizing some of those talents, they petitioned me to come and work full time.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
And,
when did you make that transition?
So I had been here about, like I said, in that second enlistment, we were in the process of actually building this base up. This building, the other buildings, there are a lot of the infrastructure. So they asked me to come and help with that. So I came and worked as a temporary on what we call temporary, like active duty orders.
Okay.
But in the Guard, it's the same. Basically, they put us on orders for a particular amount of time during the year, and I came out here and we helped actually build this whole base up. And so that happened like every year after that enlistment, and then around the 8th or 9th year, they asked that I come in and as a temporary technician, which is actually a civilian, and it's a dual status basically. Even though we do wear the uniform every day. Even though today I'm actually a civilian,
really,
but I have to wear the military uniform, and so they offered me to come out here every day. And at that time, the construction industry I was working in, it was the economic situation was bad, so I was off work quite a bit for the year. And so I said, well, why not? I'm not really working. Come out here and make some money and help out. So that's what I did. And so they I guess they liked me so much. A full-time position opened up. Permanent position, and that was actually the one over in vehicle maintenance, that as a production controller.
Okay.
And that was just the person that oversaw all of the maintenance and the equipment, making sure everything was running like it should be, assigning the work details to the mechanics. So we have our own mechanics and everything here.
Okay.
Red Horse is what you call it's a self-sufficient, independent unit. We have all of the elements that a large wing would have, like the 180th up in Toledo or the 179th in Mansfield. Okay. We have our own logistics. We have finance. We have supply. We have medics. We have logistics. We have vehicle maintenance. We have everything, just about everything that a wing has on a slightly smaller scale. So we're able to function independent of a wing, for the most part.
Okay.
So. That's how everything works here. And so, but as I was saying, over in the vehicle maintenance, I worked there, in charge of the equipment, making sure everything's right with that. And like I said, I did that for 2 years, as coming out here permanently working every day.
Okay.
And 2 years later, this is the position they detailed me in as a temporary, though.
Oh.
And so I had the background for it. I worked over here like 6 months. As a logistics person, but actually I was an equipment operator, but I was just working over here. And so because of that time, I was able to qualify for this position. And so I applied for it, and
there you go.
I got this position. And so I've been here ever since. And it's one of the better positions on the base and in the unit, and it's a bird's eye view, or actually an in-depth view of everything that goes on here.
Yeah.
Goes through here. And there's no aspect of this unit that I'm not familiar with.
Really?
Everything from the classified stuff all the way operations, logistics, vehicle maintenance, supply, everything. We have to coordinate with everybody here in order to get our job done.
To do anything.
Right. So it's like I said, so it's a very, very important position, and even with myself being gone because I'm retiring.
Yeah.
They've already brought in another person that's going to shadow me for a few weeks before they let me go. In fact, I can't even retire fully.
You said there's kind of a break in between your actual being done and done.
Right. So because I'm actually on the military side, my last military day is August the 10th.
That's what
which
it
is
was.
Sunday.
Okay.
And so civilian-wise, I'll be here for about 10 weeks longer.
Oh, wow.
And so I'll be here, I'm thinking, sometime in October before I'm fully out.
Oh.
And then they'll bring a temporary in, and I'll work with them for a few weeks to do a good handoff. And then hopefully they can hit the ground running without a serious disruption in continuity.
Do they already have your replacement picked?
Well, it's not. They have a temporary picked already.
Oh, but they don't have.
But they have that person will be temporarily promoted to this position, because this is like dual status. This is the GS-11 Master Sergeant position. Is what it is.
Okay.
In other words, on the civilian side, you get paid as a GS-11. When they activate you, or on drill status, you get paid as a Master Sergeant. So we get two pays, two W-2s every year.
Oh, okay.
And that so. But that person will come in, they'll work with me for a few weeks, and then they'll post this position, and it'll open up, that person can apply for it.
The one
and compete with everybody else who will be interested in it. But more than likely, there's a strong possibility that since that person will have been doing the job, that they'll be the person that'll outshine everybody, because you have to interview and go through the whole process. But normally these cushy little jobs here that no one really knows about, they don't like to use the term pre-selected. But normally it's only a handful of people that are going to qualify for it,
which
and
is
that they're going to be picked for it. Yeah. So and it's they're what you call non-competitive. Nobody from the outside, unless you're a member of the Guard, nobody from the outside can apply for them.
Really?
Right. In other words, a regular civilian that's not a member of the unit or of the Guard can't apply for it.
Okay, but like another detachment from another detachment.
Another guardsman can, Army or Air, and anyone from any other unit that's qualified. They'll post it on USA Jobs. And,
I used to look on
you
that.
go out there
and
it'll, and you put in your application. You do everything online now, and so, and then they'll tell you whether or not you even qualify for an interview. And normally the interview is going to be, if I'm still here, I might be on the interview board.
Got it.
My captain, he'll be managing. He'll run the interview board, and then the contestants or the applicants, they'll all interview. We'll pick the best person out of that group that applies for it. And like I said, it'll probably be maybe if 2, 3, maybe 4 people, depending.
Oh, really?
It won't be that many. It probably will be, because this is what they consider high end. Yeah. So as far as the pay is concerned, so it may be a few more, but it'll probably break down to. Probably I wouldn't think any more than 4 people at the most when they get done. And the person that's doing the job has done the job before and wants to come back. So it's a strong possibility that person is going to do everything they can to make sure they're successful in the end.
Okay. Let's see. I know. You guys said have you been deployed overseas at all?
Oh, I've been deployed.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Let's see. Well, we do what we call a summer camp every year.
Okay.
Every year we go someplace for 2 weeks. And
it's not necessarily here.
No, it's not here.
Okay.
Sometimes it's here. We call home station.
Oh.
If a person if a person has got a whole lot of things going on and they want to be close to home, they can work it out with their supervisor. Okay. They can pull their summer camp right here at Camp Peary.
Okay.
A lot of times we have certain training initiatives that have to take place. Just like this job that used to have with it, I had to go to like 4 different schools every other year to keep current.
Okay.
And so those would be my summer camps. I'd have to go, like I've been to Aberdeen Proving Ground, because I used to have to, I still have to, used to have to, I guess,
right.
do the hazardous materials for shipping.
Okay.
There's a training that you have to do every 2 years to keep current. And then for some of our classified reporting, there was every 2 years. And then for aircraft load planning, it was every 2 years. So every other year, I'd have to go to a different class, and that was basically my summer camp.
Okay.
And Nellis Air Force Base was one I had to go to on several occasions. back to Lackland on several occasions, and then to Aberdeen on several occasions, and then sometimes we went on actual with the unit. Like my first deployment when I was an equipment operator was to Spangdahlem Air Force Base, Germany.
Oh, really?
And we were building storage facilities for the base there to put equipment and store equipment in. And so that was one of my first deployments going on. Like I said, that would have been in 1983, right, coming back from basic and summer camp that same year.
That quick.
Right. So yeah, as soon as you're in, whatever comes up, we're in it. We're in it. And so and we went there the following year, and then I've been to England to what base is that in England? I can't think of the name of the base there, but England, Germany, Italy. We had places all over there, all over in Europe. Our first missions in Red Horse when I joined the unit were all in Europe, in the European theater. So between Europe, or should I say between England, Italy, Germany, that's where we were going just about every year. Then there was a shift in the 90s. We started going over to the Middle East. And then in the mid-90s, we were going to, actually, I take that back. Earlier in the 90s, we actually were also going down to Central America, South and Central America, Honduras.
Really?
Actually, that was one. We went down to Honduras for humanitarian relief deployment there. We spent a good portion. We actually loaded up all of our equipment and took it down there with us to do building construction, and we put in water lines and things like that to help, with the infrastructure and medical facilities and things like that down in Honduras. And that was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
And then we started switching over into the Middle Eastern theater. Some of our first deployments were to Israel, Palestine, Israel, depending on who's asking the question.
Yeah.
And we were building storage facilities there for aircraft and equipment. And so we were there, deployed there for several years, up until the late 90s. And then it shifted into the Persian Gulf area of the Middle East. And so we started going to Qatar, Camp Snoopy in Qatar, and that's right before 9/11 happened. And so that was what the big buildup was. So then, of course, 9/11 happened, and then we were in the thick of things that was going on, in the Middle East at that time. And in 2002, we actually got our first real world activation to go over to the Middle East and be a part of the global war on terrorism initiative that took place, Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. So we got heavily involved in that. By that time, I was the logistics person and an equipment operator. I worked actually both of those specialties in theater over there. But mostly for Red Horse, we did construction. What got blown up or got destroyed or what needed to be repaired, we went in and did some of the repairs or to Air Force facilities and the runways. Because our primary mission was rapid runway repair, which is to go in and where if a landing strip or airfield was heavily damaged for whatever reason, we would go in and make the necessary repairs so the aircraft could land. And that was a very important mission.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what we did. Of course, along with facilities, storage facilities for aircraft and equipment and supplies and things like that. That was our primary mission at Camp Snoopy and at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar at the time, back in the early 2000 up into 2002. And we finished that first deployment late 2002, that first activation, which was about 6 months total, maybe a little longer than that, because I think May, June, July, August, September, October, November, 7-8 months total.
You were over?
Between the time we got started and the time we were actually finished with that federal activation. And that was the first time that we had actually been activated or presidential call-up from the federal side.
Really?
Yes. And so
That's crazy.
With that happening, we of course we came back and then in 2005 we were activated again, and we had to go back, basically doing the same thing we did before. In 2002, we spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's where myself, I was all, and being a logistics person, I was responsible for moving materials, supplies, and troops, construction workers basically, to the different sites that we had to do construction at. And so I was everywhere. I was in Afghanistan, Dubai, Oman, just different places that I'd have to look at the map to remember the names of them now. But just all over the place, really hot spots, dangerously hot spots, and we trained for that. But we're not really combat troops. We don't actually go out on the front lines and do the shooting. We're more of we have to defend ourselves, so we have to train to be in that area. But we're not the Army, so we don't go out, on the front lines doing the business that the Army or the Marines would do.
Now, but when you guys are working and moving all this stuff and doing logistics over in these areas, do you have people that are covering you?
Yes,
that are...
Well, Red Horse has its own security forces person who teaches all of the rest of us how to provide our own security if we have to.
Right.
But in every case that we've been there, we've always had the Army there first, and the Army has secured the sites that we would be positioned at. And very seldom, if ever, we did our own security. We did have to run our own convoys and to get in and out from place to place once we were in theater in places like Kabul or Bagram Air Base, which is right outside of Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, and in Iraq, places, Baghdad, where we had to actually go into civilian population from place to place, and you had to convoy there, and we had to provide our own security for that. But our primary mission has always been construction. It's never been security or combat, even though we're considered combat engineers, because we have to train for it, even though that's not our primary mission.
You just got to be ready for it either way. Was there ever a time you were, I guess, you felt you were in immediate danger?
Not every time, but quite a bit. Like I said, flying into, being the logistics NCOIC, I end up a lot of times being a courier. Have to take the equipment and actually take it where it's going, fly with it, and being equipment, doubling as an equipment operator. That sometimes meant loading the equipment on the aircraft, as well as downloading it off the aircraft, and as well as being a courier for it, taking it from point A to point B. So we've been shot at and faced enemy fire on several occasions, especially in Afghanistan back in 2002.
Really?
Just downloading the equipment off the aircraft. We could see the flash from the so-called freedom fighters shooting out of the mountain. The bullets, they said, couldn't reach us because they were so far away. But of course, you're still thinking, I'm actually being shot at here. Somebody's trying to kill us. And so those were things that you just had to get used to, being in an environment like that. And but we were fortunate from Red Horse that we had not one casualty on all our 3 deployments. We left without everybody, and we came back with everybody. We had one person that actually we had one convoy in the last time out, which was 2010, where the convoy got blown up, and we had a troop that lost a limb, but fortunately he didn't lose his life. And so that was the only major casualty that we had, and the 3 times that we got activated. And we did get a couple of guys that got hit with shrapnel back in '02, I believe it was, and they ended up getting Purple Hearts out of it.
Okay.
But they weren't nowhere near as badly damaged as this other person was. So those were our near misses or near catastrophes.
I guess.
But it was Afghanistan is if I had to say. That was the closest place to hell that I could think of. That, if in my estimation of what hell would be like, Afghanistan was that.
Really?
That's how bad it was there, because it was war torn. It looked like it looked like it was just bombarded with the bombs, and there were still Russian tanks and Russian aircraft that were still crashed there. That from the Russians. The Russians, I guess, at some point wanted to annex, or I guess that was their Vietnam, basically. And so a lot of the aircraft and, like I said, tanks were still there that were destroyed or blown up from the time that they invaded Afghanistan prior to, our being there. So they've been at war, I guess, in Afghanistan for a very long time. From just some source or another.
Oh my gosh.
But it was a very, 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 very hard, cruel looking place, Very, very, extremely. But the people who lived here, they like business as usual for them.
Did you guys ever have to interact with the civilians that lived there?
We had to do business with them.
Okay.
The local merchants that provided some resources.
Oh, really?
We had to buy it from them. A lot of negotiation was done with the local merchants and local, I guess, I wouldn't say warlords, but a lot of local people were involved in certain transactions, business transactions. They utilized a lot of manual labor from people around what they call third country nationals, or people who were imported to come in and just to work at the bases there.
Really?
People that kept the base clean, worked in the cafeterias, and of course they created a security risk and all of that too.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they utilized several locals or people from the area to do certain immediate small jobs, that didn't require someone with a security clearance or someone that have access to certain sensitive things there.
Okay.
So that's in fact it's probably still going on now.
Now, when you were over there, was there like any downtime, or what did you guys to occupy yourselves? Did you guys do any? What did you guys do?
We had to do, of course, PT every day, physical training every day. There was basketball courts, fitness facilities, a lot of the at first no, and in 2002 wasn't a whole lot to do.
Okay.
There we were in the initial stages of building up those bases there, integrating with the local militaries there, because we had to work with the Afghans and we had to work with the Iraqis, and so that's all their facilities. There's no real Air Force, U.S. Air Force facilities in those countries. Okay. They're all bases that belong to the Iraqis or to the Afghanis that we were co-located at, and so we put facilities there and built those facilities up, and we did our best to make them meet many of the Air Force standards, or at least have some of the Air Force amenities that our troops would be used to having. So over time, they were built up and a lot better. But initially, it wasn't that much there we could do. We brought in AFIs, the Air Force. I forget those are like base exchanges, post exchanges. The PX, the small satellite type trailer setups.
Got it.
Were initially how they had maybe some DVDs there. Most of us had DVD players. We had Skype back home with, and that was basically the bulk of the entertainment. And then of course we had televisions and stuff that we brought with us, and things like that we spent time. Most time would be watching television or watching movies or some kind of PT. Okay, but you guys never ventured out into the city itself, or was that not? At times, we actually did go to we got chances to go off base
Okay.
and go out into the general population, but that was rare because the threat was just too high to go out and just do like we wanted to do or thought we could do. We couldn't just go out and it's too risky to go outside and do a lot of things. But we did do some of that, but not a whole lot.
Okay. That's I think I've seen the biggest differences from the World War II guys to like Vietnam to present day is World War II guys, when they had downtime, they went out in the cities and they kind of sightseed, whereas today it's totally different.
Yeah, they don't allow that. Most times we're confined to base.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to get off base quite a bit, just because of the nature of my job.
Okay.
And also because I was Islamic background.
Yeah.
So my Islamic background, of course, I got the opportunity to go off base a little bit more than everybody else did.
Okay.
In fact, I was even coordinating some of the worship services for most of the Islamic troops that were in the theater at the time.
Really?
So I was, responsible for doing a lot of that. So, like I said, that got me off base quite a little bit. But even then, we were in, and this was at Qatar, which was relatively safe.
Okay.
That was our hub in the Persian Gulf, was right there. So, but when we went to some of the other places, we didn't get a chance to get off as much. Even I didn't get off as much. I didn't want to get off as much.
Well, that's the other end. Yeah. Did you even want to get off?
No, I didn't even want to get off base in some places because it's just too dangerous. I didn't go over there. I wasn't trying to be a bullet catcher or anything like that. So I wasn't trying to get off base. But in Qatar, I tried to get off quite a bit, and I did get off quite a bit there. But like I said, the threat in Qatar was always low. Okay. It was always a very, very low. We never had any kind of attacks there at all. Not one time that I recall anything even remotely happening there that compromised anybody. Okay. Normally it would be in Iraq or Afghanistan if we had some trouble.
Okay. When you were deployed, did you stay in contact with your family back here quite a bit?
Yes.
How did you do that?
Well, like I said, we had Skype, email, telephone calls. We got a chance to have morale calls on a pretty regular basis. Okay. And like I said, being with Red Horse, we were able to set up our own what we call moral welfare and recreation program, MWR program. And so we had phones there, and of course we got free phone cards from AT&T and just things like that where we could call home. And most times everybody that got the opportunity to call home, they called home, quite often. So we got a chance to stay in touch with the family and friends back in the States. And of course, with the advent of email and things like that, it even became more.
I was just saying, did you do emails too?
So
instead of the letters, it's emails.
And we sent letters.
Did you?
Too. Yeah, we actually wrote letters.
Did you?
And
That's good to
we also
hear.
got letters from just people who wanted to express their support for troops. And so a lot of us got letters from people we didn't even know, where people wrote letters saying thank you for your service. And
do you like seeing that stuff?
Oh yeah, it makes the difference between it makes the time. Everything makes the time go by because when you first think about it, it's like, cause we knew we were going to be there 6 months. Just seems like a long time. 6 months, but it goes by fast. And by the time we knew it, we were back home. So.
Now, were you married? Had kids at the time while you were over there?
Each time, married, small kids, big kids, and like I said, we just stayed in touch as best we could. In fact, my wife's from France.
Oh, really?
So she was in France. Every time that I've been deployed, she's been there, right? And so, staying in touch was a little easier, so we really never had a problem with communication. So communication and getting the phone home or stay in contact at home was never a problem for most of us. I don't know of anyone that really had a problem being able to communicate, at least from this unit, from our unit. But I'm sure some folks probably did, but
Yeah.
we didn't.
Okay. So after you got back here, did all your deployments, you just pretty much stayed in this area? You didn't
Right.
get deployed much after that?
Well, we went back to our business as
Yeah.
usual schedules. The little 2 weeks here,
Got it.
smaller deployments, and what we call summer camp type
Yeah, nothing
deployments,
overseas,
but
though.
nothing overseas. Just in, like I said, 2002, I actually deployed twice. I actually did 2 tours that year, and then 2005 we went back, and then in 2010.
Okay.
Those were the 4 times that I actually went over there active duty wise. And so, because what happened is we actually become active duty Air Force people.
When you're over there?
When they activate us, we actually become Air Force. The actual active duty, we become active duty, even though we're guardsmen.
Yeah.
We still are active duty, and we integrate right with the active duty, our active duty counterparts here.
Okay. Let's see. Anything I haven't really asked you that you can think of? I think you're doing
Well,
you did awesome.
I don't know. I don't know what all we're trying.
Well, looking back at it, I mean, would you do it again?
Well, like I said, I think that, pound for pound, it was one of the better decisions I ever made.
Yeah.
I've had, in my opinion, I've had a great career. Didn't get everything I wanted out of it, but for the most part, it's been great. I've done things I never would have done. Been places I never would have went to, and we've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people all over the world. So I think we've done a great service, and then being able to serve your country, especially someone from my background, I think it's a great thing to be able to do something like that, to spend this much time, because I would have never thought I would have spent this much time in a military organization, period, back in the day, but it just turned out that way. So.
You said you were born and raised in Toledo?
Born and raised in Toledo. My mom's from here. My father's side, they're of Ethiopian descent.
Oh.
So, like I said, I had my upbringing was a little different than everybody else's. I had a little different perspective on things than people did. Other people in my community and in my neighborhood did. But I, like I said, in high school, I had no plans on coming to the military, though. I can remember the recruiters being at our high school, and
You're like,
no way, it is not going to happen. and actually, it was right at the end, the drawdown. When I was in high school, the Vietnam War was just getting over.
Okay.
And there was, of course, prior to that, everybody was being drafted. That was back when they had the draft.
Yeah.
And then they went to the zero draft, but you did have to register for the draft. And so by the time I graduated from high school, there was no initiative to bring people into the military.
Really?
So I wasn't going, period, And so, but I ended up being an operating engineer apprentice, for 4 years, and that was what, kind of, like I said, that opened the door for me to actually join the military later, though, because I just wanted to do something else with my time and what I considered to be my skill set was to do something with it, on a larger scale. And of course, like I initially said, just to see what I was made of, in comparison to everybody else, just to see if I could hack it.
Did do you have any other brothers and sisters that were in military, or no? It just kind of.
I'm the first person in the family, and my son was in the unit for a while. I had a son, my oldest son. He was here. He did 6 years.
Really?
And decided not to stay.
Yeah.
And he's the only other one. I had a couple nephews, and my godson just did 6 years, and he's out. He just got out his last drill was this month. So then I've encouraged maybe over about five additional people to join the unit.
Really?
And one's the career. One's been almost 20 years now. he's over in the structure shop, and he's been in for he's just short of 20 years that he's been in, and that, so, but other than that, no other family members. My daughter was interested for a while, then she said no, no, because the benefits are at least, especially today, there are just tremendous benefits for joining the Guard.
Okay.
They have a $15,000 or $20,000 sign-on bonus. That's a lot of money for a kid.
Heck yeah, it is.
100% college tuition, which I'm actually utilizing my college tuition now. I have a degree from 2 degrees from a religious institution.
Oh, really?
But I don't have an academic one, or I do now, but I didn't.
Okay.
And I took advantage of the Ohio tuition assistance, which is through the Air National Guard. They pay for your college 100%. So I'll be graduating in December from UT with my bachelor's there, which I also have. I have a degree in logistics from the Community College of the Air Force and a degree in business management from UT. And then I have this one. It's applied organizational technology, which I'll be, like I said, I've got 3 classes this fall. I don't see how I will graduate in December, and so I'll be graduating in December with that. And like I said, that's not for anything other than my own personal satisfaction. I don't need it for work or anything. But there's tremendous, the opportunities and the benefits are just great. I mean, they pay for your school, and they pay me to go to school.
That's awesome.
So it's a win-win situation.
Should have done that. I'm paying on mine still.
And so there are some, there's many people in the unit. There's one, she just got her degree in engineering, and so she's accepted an active duty position. She just left maybe a couple weeks ago, and we've got several other personnel that are finishing up their degrees and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their careers now. So it's a great opportunity, to come out of college without tens of thousands of dollars in school loans that have to be paid off and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it's been a great opportunity, and like I said, it's one of the better decisions that I've made. That I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't know I was making a good decision at the time, but it turned out to be a really good decision to make to come here. And it's really been a great unit. Like I said, it's a lot more diverse. And when I joined the unit, when I joined this unit, there was one female here, and she was in supply. And then they said no females in Red Horse. Red Horse is a combat-oriented unit, no females, period. So they put her out, and about 10 years later, before they started allowing women to come back into this unit.
Really?
And now it's maybe close to 20%, if not 25% females. Whereas at one time it was an all male organization, and then, like I said, mostly older Caucasian white guys. And like I said, between me and them at that time,
rough.
There's no way I'm staying around these guys at all. They are just off the scale.
Really?
They are off the hook. And so, but like I said, it's a lot more diverse here now, and it's just a difference between day and night.
Huh. So you said you're getting ready to retire.
I'm like my last official military day is the 10th of this month, and now, like I said, I'll be a civilian for a few weeks, and then I'll be done with that. And actually, I actually would not be leaving now, but what they consider I'm being medically separated, because they say I'm not. You have to maintain a certain degree of physical and mental abilities. If you don't meet those, then they say, I think I'm in better shape than most of the people half my age, but they say I'm not. And and that's really why I'll be on for a while, civilian wise.
Okay.
Normally, as a dual status, as soon as my military commitment is done, you're done. Period.
That's what I thought.
But for me, since they're putting me out medically, I have the option to allow them to process my medical retirement, my medical side, and that's going to take a little longer than just a straight out retirement, military and all that. So I guess that's a blessing in disguise a little bit there too, just to be able to stick around here, and of course it gives me the opportunity to work with someone that's going to, take over and provide a degree of continuity that probably wouldn't be there under some other circumstances.
So do you have plans for your after military?
Well, I always tell people, my first love is cars. I had a car before I had a girlfriend. And, I was a vocational technical high schooler.
Okay.
I graduated from a body shop. I was a mechanic and a body mechanic. So I got a pretty good background in cars. And my cousin and I, we have a body shop. We restore classic and antique cars. We rebuild cars and things like that. So that's something we've been doing off and on. I've been doing off and on a small level for the last 10 years or so. So we're planning on picking that up and doing some things with that, And then, like I said, I'm also a chaplain. We have a prison. Our mosque has a prison ministry where I act as an Islamic chaplain at several of Ohio's state penal institutions.
Really?
So I do that, and so I'm pretty. Plus, I still got 3 small children, not small children, but my youngest is just turned 9, and so my 3 small children. I got 3 children that are under 18, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to integrate them into my schedule a little bit more than I have in the past, and so it's I think I'll be pretty busy, I don't plan on retiring fully, and of course, we're always members of this organization, and so they have events and things going on all the time, every year. So, I'll try to stay in contact and help do or become more involved in some of the things that they have going on that the family support group has.
Got it.
And things like that help the unit in other ways that maybe not be directly involved in the everyday operations.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add? I think that was good.
I don't know. I can't think of anything else. Let's see. I can go over this list here.
You did great.
Yeah, we talked about all of this.
Yeah.
How did we get through it? Let's see. I think we did pretty good.
Think you're good?
Yeah.